Tonight, a toxic environment. A damning report highlights sexism and serious concerns around the culture in Cricket Scotland. We hear from some of the women targeted.
It's a damning indictment on how Cricket Scotland was able to accept those behaviours and let them go on for a period of time.
Also making the headlines, should police officers be called to help people with mental health problems? The force is looking at alternatives that would free officers to tackle crime.
An investigation continues into the stabbing of a teenager at a park in Glasgow's south side.
And in sport, Scotland regroup after defeat by Italy in the Six Nations. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. A toxic environment and a high degree of prejudice towards female staff and players. Cricket Scotland is once again under the microscope after a damning report highlighted serious concerns around the organisation's culture and in particular its attitude to women.
STV News has spoken to one former member of staff who says she was left bullied, belittled and broken in what should have been her dream job. The new boss of the organisation has apologised and vowed to make major changes. Ollie Dickinson has this exclusive story.
It was a great opportunity for me and I wanted to do a great job doing it, but I think things started to unravel quite quickly.
For a little over a year, this woman, who we're calling Jane, says she was bullied and belittled by her boss, Gus Mackay, at Cricket Scotland.
I was probably 3 months in when the first situation arose where I thought, maybe this isn't the job for me, maybe I should not be doing this. It would depend on the day, to be honest, but it could be anywhere between a reasonable conversation and actually yelling at you in front of other people. It's humiliating, it's degrading, it's upsetting, it's potentially scary. He's a big guy.
Jane then became aware of a second incident involving a different member of staff.
If that wasn't bad enough, there's then a second incident. You've only recently, I think, become aware of exactly what was said. I'll quote from it here. It says, "The next time I see her in the office, I'll pin her by the neck against the wall and tell her exactly what I think of her." What's your reaction to those words?
I wish I could say it surprised me. It doesn't, but it's shocking. It's really upsetting. Everybody knew that this person knew where I lived, had access to my phone numbers, all that kind of stuff, and there was no protection offered to me at all.
As far as you're aware, was this man working with other women? Was he working closely with women? What was he doing at Cricket Scotland?
My understanding is that he worked closely with women, including young women, minors, and I have really serious concerns about the fact that nothing's been done to prevent him doing it somewhere else, because my feeling is that he's dangerous.
Jane isn't alone. STV has been handed a copy of statements taken 3 years ago from employees which formed an internal report into the culture around and treatment of women in the organisation.
I'm terrified of him. I don't want to be in the same room. I'm scared to speak up, and that's not like me. I don't want to be myself in case I say anything wrong.
Internally, it's never been worse. I don't want to say toxic, but it's not friendly. People would rather work from home than the thought of being in the office. The way that he made me feel, even saying his name, upsets me. I had to be put on antidepressants because of the stress level.
Now the extent of those problems have been made public. This damning report into the culture at Cricket Scotland over recent years speaks of antiquated attitudes and behaviours towards women, a toxic environment and a high degree of prejudice towards female staff and players. Tonight, the new boss of Cricket Scotland said sorry.
Behaviours like that are not acceptable in any organisation, and I apologise to anybody that's been impacted by what occurred prior to 2020-22 at Cricket Scotland. It's a damning indictment on how Cricket Scotland was able to accept those behaviours and let them go on for a period of time.
It also quotes a high degree of prejudice towards women that continues in certain spheres. How do you, it's not turning a ship around, it's turning a tanker around there. How do you tackle that longer job?
it will be challenging. I think we've got to be realistic here. This is not something that we're going to change overnight. We've got inherent behaviours that have been around cricket and sport for a long, long time. So a description of turning a tanker around is very apt. But I'm up for the task, my team is up for the task, and importantly so is our board. You know, we need to do what is right. We need to look forward, but we need to learn from the past and make sure we never do again what has happened to the people within cricket, and particularly those that have come through this report that we're seeing today.
Gus Mackay told STV News his departure from the role was not the result of any formal disciplinary process. For Cricket Scotland, after being found to be institutionally racist just 2 years ago, today's report shows that repairing trust is an ongoing process. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
And Ollie joins us in the studio. Ollie, a damning report and strong words from the new boss of Cricket Scotland. But as she said, this will be a long process.
Well, as you've just said there, John, and as we've heard time and time again, this is a damning report. That just about does it justice. But it also does highlight some of the positive changes that have already taken place under Trudy Lindblade. She's serious and committed. When you meet her, she talks with a real purpose about making sure these changes are long-term and long-lasting. It's worth noting, though, that this report today is 35 pages long. A whistleblower has passed hundreds of pages of documentation onto STV News covering a whole range of time periods at Cricket Scotland, so there's a feeling that there's a bit more to it.
So Ollie, what are they planning to do?
Well, among today's recommendations are things like that cricket club committees are modernised to address what they feel are discriminatory attitudes towards female players and staff, that the investment in the women's game is equal to that of the men's to ensure that there's parity in contracts, equal treatment for both male and female players, that a programme of education takes place to address what is called an inherent sexism, and that there is a visible process for staff and players to call out any problems that they may have. It's been a long road for Cricket Scotland. It does feel like we've been here before, but the hierarchy today determined to make a change.
Ollie, thank you.
Now, every day across Scotland, the police go to hundreds of calls to incidents involving mental health where there are concerns for someone's safety. And the vast majority of them, no crime has been committed.
Now the force is looking at better ways to deal with such cases. It believes that could provide more appropriate help for people in crisis and free up the equivalent of 500 new officers. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
I couldn't manage the episodes that I was experiencing, which was swinging constantly from high to low with very little normality in between. It was all new to me, so I was very frightened by what was happening to me. I found that there was so much emotional strain and there was a lot of hospital admissions.
Speaking anonymously, that's one woman's experience of mental health crisis. She was eventually sectioned after being detained by police on a motorway bridge before getting the help she needed. And that sort of support is being provided by the Nuke in Perth, which is working with the police to be a first point of contact in an emergency.
We had a gentleman who had separated from his partner, and as a result of that was struggling to cope. And he was making an attempt on his own life. But because of the risk of harm and the risk that he posed to his surroundings at the time, he had a knife. We know that the situation escalated and there was 10 police officers that responded to that event. So he was actually brought here to the Nuke, and we were able to work with him and go through and really offer him some practical advice and support around the situation that he found himself in.
Over the last 4 years, around 3,000 people have come through the doors here. And the hope now is that this is a model that could be adopted nationally.
More than 100,000 calls a year to Police Scotland involve mental health related incidents. In 87% of them, no crime has been committed, but they can tie up officers for an entire shift. The aim now is to develop more ways so these cases can be handed over earlier to people better placed to help.
It's absolutely right and proper that the police are called when there's an emergency response required and people are concerned about their own or another person's safety, we're always going to respond to that. So it's only by working in collaboration with other organisations and services that we can ensure people's needs are best met, and the police are freed up to make sure that they can focus on the things that only the police can do.
The organisation representing rank and file police officers says up to 50% of their time is regularly taken up dealing with mental health calls.
At the moment we are picking up all of that, and that manifests itself in sitting at A&E waiting rooms, waiting in people's living rooms for calls from mental health practitioners, and the time and effort and the impact on our ability to deliver policing is huge.
The Chief Constable is due to visit the Nuke in the coming weeks to hear firsthand how its approach could be used more widely. Gordon Cree, STV News, Perth.
Other stories, and staff at STV are set to strike over an ongoing pay dispute. Members of the National Union of Journalists have voted overwhelmingly in favour of industrial action after talks with STV failed to result in an improved pay offer. Strike action could disrupt news and current affairs coverage. STV say they are disappointed by the vote, and their offer would increase salaries by overinflation for more than half the newsroom workforce.
A man has been charged after the roof of a double-decker bus was ripped off when it hit a bridge in West Lothian. Police received reports of the crash at Falthouse train station just before 6 o'clock this morning. A 59-year-old man was charged in connection with the incident. There were no injuries reported, and it's understood the bus was empty at the time.
It's 4 years since the coronavirus outbreak was officially declared a pandemic, and thousands of Scots continue to live with devastating health consequences of the virus. The Scottish Government insists it takes long COVID very seriously and recognises the impact it can have on those more severely affected.
But a leading charity warns thousands of patients with this debilitating condition have been left unsupported and unable to work. Our chief reporter Sharon Frew has been hearing one patient's story.
My health fell off a cliff, and I'm still trying to scrabble my way back up that cliff.
For Crawford Flint, finding a suitable treatment for long COVID has been as challenging as living with the condition. Months after recovering from the virus, he developed breathing problems, which have left him unable to walk to the end of the street.
It's been a catalogue of tests and getting passed from pillar to post. The advice is pretty much the same. You've got to pace yourself. If you're used to actually doing things, pacing yourself's an absolute nightmare.
Crawford says private oxygen therapy has been a game changer. And while he does have a supportive GP, he has struggled to access any meaningful NHS help.
I can just about afford to go private. I can just about afford to pay for all the oxygen. I can just about afford to buy a mobility scooter. There's folk that can't.
According to Chest, Heart and Stroke Scotland, since 2020, over 180,000 Scots have developed long COVID. The charity estimate more than 70,000 are unable to work due to the condition and are struggling financially. Its patient survey described NHS support as patchy at best. The Public Health Minister visited a long COVID service at Crosshouse Hospital earlier. £3 million has been directed this year to NHS boards to increase the capacity of existing services.
They each support different populations, but these health boards also speak to each other, not necessarily just within Scotland, but also across the United Kingdom. And that learning is absolutely important to ensure that we treat people the right way with this condition.
Almost 200 patients have been referred to NHS Ayrshire and Arran service in the last year.
People are finding it difficult to access their GP and difficult to access a GP who's got knowledge and understanding of their condition. So that's definitely a barrier. But we do people a disservice if they don't go through that process, because they could have a treatable underlying condition that could be being missed. So it's really important that we don't say, oh, it's fine, just come and see us anyway. It's really important that people actually get a diagnosis.
The need for dedicated long COVID hubs will be raised at Holyrood again this week, with MSPs set to debate the issue on Wednesday. Sharon Frew, STV News.
Other news in the West, and the Virgin Hotel in Glasgow is up for sale following its sudden closure in December. Lloyd's Developments Limited, which owns the building, was forced to enter administration, making 150 staff redundant. They have now instructed estate agents to put the 17-storey hotel overlooking the River Clyde on the market. Investigations have continued for a third day after a 13-year-old boy was stabbed multiple times next to Queen's Park in Glasgow on Friday evening. Police say they're carrying out extensive door-to-door inquiries and are appealing for CCTV footage. The former First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, who is the local MSP, says her thoughts are with the victim and his family and is encouraging anyone with information to speak with officers. Brandon Cook reports.
A torn patch of police tape is the only sign of Friday's attack still at the scene. The cam of this afternoon a stark contrast to a frightening ordeal, which left a 13-year-old boy with multiple stab wounds. The teenager was found here at around 8:30 that evening and rushed to hospital, where he has remained in a serious but stable condition.
Why are they carrying knives? You know, it's shocking. I was shocked. Yeah. Absolutely shocked when I seen it. I hope the boy's going to be okay.
We use this park all the time. I take my grandson here and I never see any trouble. So yeah, 13 years old, and I believe he was stabbed multiple times as well. It's shocking.
I mean, I've been in this area for over 40 years now, so I've never had a problem, to be honest, So what can you say? I mean, it's very sad indeed, being attacked like that, especially with a weapon,
A widely shared social media post over the weekend suggested the young boy was on his way home from this mosque when he was attacked. Nearby Muslim faith leaders say it's prompted concern, but police today said the boy wasn't in traditional dress, and though they're keeping an open mind, there's nothing to suggest a hate crime. Officers say their investigations so far have revealed there was an altercation near to Queen's Park that evening, and that they're particularly keen to speak with a group of youths who were in the park around that time. Extensive door-to-door inquiries and CCTV checks are being carried out. Police are also appealing for anyone who was in the area on Friday night to contact them. Former First Minister and local MSP Nicola Sturgeon said her thoughts are with the young boy and that she is very aware of the anxiety this incident is causing within the local community. She too is urging anyone with relevant information to speak with police. But with inquiries ongoing, parents here say they face another night of unease, wondering when the culprit will be caught and if their kids are safe on the streets. Brandon Cook, STV News, Glasgow.
Time for sport, and Rahman is in Greenock at Capello Park ahead of tonight's cup tie.
Thanks very much, John. A very good evening from Capello, where the remaining quarter-final of the Scottish Cup takes place as Morton host Hearts. The Championship side defeated Motherwell in the previous round of the competition, and they're targeting another big win tonight. Hearts, though, will be equally determined to secure a place in the last four of the Cup and secure their place at Hampden. Well, I'm delighted to say Morton manager Dougie Emery joins us now. Thanks very much for joining us, Dougie. What a big tie for your club, your team. Just one win away from the semi-finals and a place at Hampden. What have you told your players?
Just to go enjoy the occasion, they deserve to be here. They had a great result in the last round against Motherwell, when we're looking to continue that tonight against Hearts.
What's the build-up been like, not just here at the club but in the town?
Yeah, everybody's looking forward to the game. There's a real buzz about the club and the town itself, and just hopefully that can bring a few more fans in the weeks and months to come.
Well, in terms of fans tonight, we're told there are over 8,000 tickets that's been sold. There's going to be some atmosphere in here tonight. Surely your players are going to feed off that, aren't they?
Yeah, it'll be electric. I think there's 8,500 to expect here tonight, so it's one of the biggest crowds in over 40 years, I'm led to believe, so everybody should be looking forward to it. My players will certainly be looking forward to it, and we hope we can put on a good show.
You've got a few injuries in your squad. What's the latest?
Yeah, there's one or two, but the squad's good enough to, I think, Rawan to go and showcase our talents. Obviously we're missing key player tonight, but we can't use that as an excuse. We have to go out and then give our all, and then hopefully come the end of the game we're into the next round.
And one of them is George Oakley, who scored in the previous round. You'll miss him, won't you?
Yeah, we'll miss George. He's been an influential player for us this season, scored a lot of goals, but not just that, his overall play brings a lot of our good play into that, and brings a lot of our players into the game, so we'll miss that, but like I say, we've got good players who can fill in the void that George says he's going to miss tonight.
The Hearts are in very good form themselves, and they've got a striker who's in very good form in Lawrence Shankland. How do you keep him quiet?
Listen, I think you can't just try and keep Lawrence quiet. You know, Hearts are filled with good players all over the pitch. So, but certainly Lawrence is one that we'll need to try and keep quiet if we've any aspirations to enter the next round. But listen, we know how tough the game's going to be, but we have to give Hearts respect. You know, they're a top team. They've shown that this season in the Premier League. So we know how difficult the tie's got to be. But I think just giving Lawrence the respect would be unfair to the rest of the team. So we'll leave that one there.
OK, Dougie, thanks very much for joining us on the STV News at 6. Well, as I said, Hearts are in very good form ahead of tonight's tie. They've won 12 out of their last 15 games. Stephen Naismith has already taken his team to Hampden this season after reaching the semi-finals of the League Cup. They are targeting a place in the last 4 of the Scottish Cup.
It'll be a proper cup tie. It'll be something that we'll need to go into in the right frame of mind and then manage the game the way we want to manage it. That's what's gave us success so far in the cup games, so it'll be more of the same. This isn't us in the Premier League, third in the league, doing really well, and we're going to go down there and it's going to be nice and pretty and it's going to be getting it our own way. That's not going to happen. This is going to be a cup tie that they're going to try and believe they can cause an upset. We need to guard against that.
Well, it should be a cracking cup tie here at Capello. Kick-off is at 7:45. Now, Hibs boss Nick Montgomery believes the game would benefit if officials were full-time. Montgomery was speaking after 2 of his players were sent off in the quarter-final cup tie against Rangers at Easter Road last night. With a look back at the quarter-final games, here's Jamie Borthwick.
Big decisions that Nick Montgomery felt went against his team. But after VAR checks confirmed a penalty and a red card against Hibernian, the Easter Road boss does not believe it's the technology to blame.
It definitely does help the game. There's positives and negatives to it. It's easy to talk about the negatives, but I think the positives really are, you know, when there's a goal scored, just to double check that you know the goal should stand. But yeah, we have to be honest, and you know, there's part-time referees, and I think it's a full-time job is reviewing and learning.
Rangers won 2-0 just days after an energy-sapping European tie. But with more injury concerns for Philippe Clement, he still believes that they're short of the fitness he wants for them to fight on all fronts.
We are not there where I want them to be. But for that I need a preparation, what they missed, clearly. Because still people are falling out, coming back, and others falling out. So there are only a few players in the squad really ready for what I want, and that's a competitive team who's there every 3 days with that intensity.
Celtic were made to work for their 4-2 win over Livingston. Daisen Maeda scored a hat-trick before Kyogo rounded off the victory with his first goal in 4 games.
Very important player for us, and it looked offside, I have to be honest, but then obviously the lines went in, and he ended up, he finished really well because he's got time to think about it, but got in, got the finish, and gives us a nice balance and nice options going into the final games.
It's been a painful season. I'm not going to sit here tell lies. It's been a painful season. I hope that the players can take a wee bit of self-belief for that, a wee bit of self-confidence, because I honestly believe that I thought they were very, very good in the game today.
Meanwhile, following Kilmarnock's 3-1 defeat to Aberdeen, captain Kyle Vassell says their focus is on the top 6 and the race for European places after Kelly missed out on a trip to Hampden. Jamie Borthwick, STV News.
To rugby news now, and Scotland head coach Gregor Townsend admits finishing the Six Nations campaign with 2 wins would be considered a disappointment. Well, the players were training in Edinburgh today, preparing for their final match against Ireland on Saturday. Townsend's side suffered their 2nd defeat of the championship at the weekend. Despite leading Italy 22-10, they lost 31-29 following a poor second half display. The Scots were unable to follow up their victories against Wales and England. And that game between Scotland and Ireland in Dublin is live on STV on Saturday. Just got time to give you some tennis news. Cameron Norrie is in action at Indian Wells. He's taking on Gael Monfils right now. That, folks, is all your sport tonight. I'll see you again tomorrow.
All right, Raman, thanks very much. OK, time for the weather now. Here's Sean.
A spell of sea air will be followed by a strong chance of you have to try these.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. I thought we'd start off by having a look at the rainfall distribution this week. You probably prefer I don't show you because it's here. We're probably going to see the worst of the rain through most of the week. A lot of rain around during tomorrow. More rain on Wednesday, especially across Lanarkshire and Ayrshire, where it takes a wee bit longer to clear away. And then on Thursday, well, you can see there's still plenty of rain across the southwest. Again, Lanarkshire, Dumfries and Galway and Ayrshire, where the bulk of the rain comes back in from the south. And then a very showery day on Friday. Temperatures probably flatlining around average for the time of year. No big swings away to cold weather or warmer weather just yet. At least the daffodils, crocuses starting to come up. It feels a little bit spring-like out there. But unfortunately at this stage it looks as if we could be looking at colder weather as we head towards Easter. But I'll be keeping a close eye on that. Meteorologically speaking, a long way off and things may change. Now tonight we hang on to cloud, we hang on to outbreaks of rain for many of us, turning more persistent, the southwest and also across likes of Argyll, Stirlingshire and also the Highlands. So a wet night to come, but it will be turning a lot milder. Temperatures about 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. So tomorrow not looking too great. The first half of the day especially cloudy, wet, the rain turning more light and patchy into the afternoon, very misty and murky weather around, and most of us in this wedge here between warm front to the east, cold front to the west, and that means we're in the warm sector. Temperatures reaching highs of 11 or 12 degrees in the afternoon, but it will still be rather cloudy. We hang on to a lot of cloud, brightening up on Wednesday before more rain on Thursday.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, in Edinburgh, a dog diagnosed with a rare form of cancer just months after making her debut at Crufts last year has gone on to take a top prize home after overcoming her disease.
1-year-old Samoy Teto underwent 2 operations during her treatment and went on to make a full recovery. She made a heartwarming return to the show over the weekend alongside 13-year-old owner Dermot Sim and took home the Good Citizen Prize.
She's going to fully recover from the granulosa cell tumour. We're going to be coming back to Crufts every single year after she was qualified for life at SKC. And yeah, I'm really proud of her and hopefully, you know, best in show, we're coming. Cheetah, sit.
Good to see she's made a full recovery and picking up prizes along the way.
I want to be picked up as well with the looks of things from that. From all of us here, thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.